The human brain has 100 billion neurons, each neuron connected to 10,000 other neurons. Sitting on your shoulders is the most complicated object in the known universe. Michio Kaku. The human mind is probably the most complex system we have been blessed with. It is also the main regulator of our happiness and success. This idea is not necessarily new. It's been around for millennia and has been rephrased in many different forms by philosophy, religion, medical practice, and common sense wisdom. Yet only recently, due to extensive medical research, we have become able to understand the processes that connect the dots and allow that to happen. That also means that we have been given a real shot at better achieving the things that we strive for. The human being can hardly become efficient at anything if a right balance is not achieved in the mind. There can be no success for a brain that does not understand the basic principles of its own function. For better or worse, our brain is a self-modifying entity. Think about what this implies. It is a machine that is able to improve, to work on itself. Had this ability been granted to an artificial intelligence, we would have both feared that ability and longed for its eventual omnipotence. Yet in our own selves, we fail to take this power for what it really is, and most of us squander this immense gift. Yes, everything we've ever done and thought came through this fascinating machinery. The way it operates has produced countless sleepless nights for philosophers and scientists for sure. Although we've come a long way in our understanding of the brain's processes, the more we probe its secrets and dive into the universe of the mind, the more surprised, amazed we are, and the more motivated to go further. Just like a sedentary body, an unexercised mind will slowly, inexorably decline, if not to a halt, then to some minimal, boring, repetitive actions which, by themselves, reduce our chances of success to a minimum and will also diminish our chances to find lasting happiness or peace of mind. The brain has more than one similarity to the physical world. It has the dexterity and growth of a muscle that builds upon its own effort and becomes ever better. But that in itself is not enough, since when it comes to mental activity, not any sort of growth is necessarily good. So the question is, how do we train it in such a way that it becomes a tool for our success? How do we train it to bear fruits not only sweet but also nourishing? Let us start by covering some basics first and explaining a few of the newly discovered functions of our brain. Neuroplasticity. No further than 3 or 4 decades ago, it was thought that our nervous system was rather fixed and pretty much incapable of any serious regeneration. It was thought that, besides the period of prenatal development, the growth of neurons was limited. The general consensus was that, by the time we reach adulthood, we were stuck with what we had. And there seemed to be even more bad news, since neurons proved to atrophy as people aged. Under these circumstances, it seemed to be a miracle that the human brain could keep working for so long and quite remarkably well, even for those who were rather old. In present days, scientists have proven without a doubt that neurons continue to be born throughout adulthood, and even more. It seems that we are endowed with an ability that has been named neuroplasticity, which refers to the brain's amazing power to change its structure and function in response to what it experiences. A short quote from Wikipedia is relevant at this point. Neuroplasticity seems to occur on a variety of levels, ranging from cellular changes due to learning to large-scale changes involved in cortical remapping in response to injury. The role of neuroplasticity is widely recognized in healthy development, learning, memory, and recovery from any sort of brain damage. But the discovery of neuroplasticity was only the beginning. Where things got really interesting was after scientists discovered something even more surprising about this process: that the experiences which were shaping the brain didn't necessarily have to be real. They could just as well be imagined exercises, and the changes would still occur. There have been many experiments to test this assumption, and all of them revealed similar results. If one group of people had been engaged in a certain activity, while another group just imagined doing that activity, all of their brains responded and displayed activity in the same areas. This was an amazing discovery whose effects and side effects are still being researched and explored. On one hand, this proved that mental training is definitely not a ridiculous notion, but quite the opposite. On the other hand, if the brain has trouble distinguishing between a real exercise and an imagined one, that means that even by remembering negative experiences, we will subject ourselves to almost or just as much harm than we suffered when we first had those experiences. Without getting too much into scientific terms, what you need to know is that stress releases a substance called cortisol, which results in the shrinking of the hippocampus area of the brain. And the hippocampus is one of the few areas that is known to be able to produce new neurons. In short, stress is able to single-handedly degenerate neurons while preventing new ones from being produced. This further enhances the conclusion that a person's mentality is directly responsible for that person's success and fulfillment or the lack of them, which in turn makes it even more important for us to grasp these notions and to find ways of controlling and improving our thoughts. One of these methods involves our handling of memories. Memory rewiring. What the neuroscientists only recently understood is how the brain retrieves memories. Most of us think about our memories as being kept as they were, in certain drawers, or in memory banks in our brain. We imagine the act of remembering as nothing more than playback of the original recording. This is what the scientists disproved. They have now real evidence that shows how the brain rewires the connections between neurons every time we remember something. But how does this help us in achieving success? Actually, your behavior, your general attitude is heavily influenced by your memories. Negative ones hold you down, discouraging you. You are less likely to try a certain thing again, even if chances of failure are relatively small if you had a bad experience with that exact thing in the past. This not only applies to your business life, but also to anything else. New experiences, taking chances, promising opportunities, all of them refused because of the fear of repeated failure. This is how memory rewiring works. The brain literally changes its structure every time we remember something. The more you play back a certain memory, the more you imprint it with your emotions about that particular thing. And chances are, in doing that, you are also driving it further away from reality, from what really happened. This can turn out to be a really, really bad thing if that memory hurts you, especially if you are unaware of this process. On the other hand, it can prove to be an invaluable help if used with awareness. It can seriously diminish the negative effects of memories that have scarred you. So what does this discovery imply? It implies a very real possibility of editing our memories, enforcing the good parts and weakening the ones that hurt. Every time we remember something, we are literally editing, changing it, and re-memorizing it. This implies that if we become aware of how this mechanism works, we have a real choice in what emotions we associate to certain memories. This method is so efficient that most motivational speakers are nowadays proposing it to their listeners. Also, it has become part of the therapy used in treating PTSD sufferers. Of course, there are certain limits that we must establish when using this method. After all, there is little to be gained from changing things that do not need to be changed. Yet there are memories so bad that this method is a sort of a last resort for them. There are good memories that we could definitely underline in order to gain more obvious gains, like a better motivation in recreating them, increased self-esteem, and a general stability in our psyche. So how does this work exactly? Well, in the case of a bad memory, what you need to do is bring it into your mind, then imagine it getting smaller and dimmer, as if watched on an old black and white TV that is gradually getting further away from you. The brain responds to notions of size and color, associating smallness and grayness with unimportance. Then add details that scramble the memory even more. These details are particular to what that certain memory is. For example, if it involves a group of people that made you feel uncomfortable, picture them wearing clown suits. Try adding hilarious positive details. The old emotions will gradually be replaced by new ones, and by the time you manage to chuckle while imagining that moment, it means the method has succeeded in doing what it was supposed to do. With good memories, you must do the exact opposite. You must try to picture them as big, as vivid, and as loud as you possibly can. Concentrate on the good feelings that the memories bring back. Enforce them. Add some more if you feel the need for it. Keep doing this until you turn that particular memory into a driving motivation. The catch is that by empowering it, you greatly increase your drive, your desire to turn it into reality again. As a last detail, a general word of warning about this method. The entire point of it is to change the feelings and details associated with a certain memory, either dimming or enforcing them, not to try to alter the facts that happened. Alienation from reality, from what has actually happened, is rarely a solution, more a complication that could turn out to be even worse than the original issue. Trying to tell your brain something that it knows deep down not to be true could prove unreliable or even backfire. The subconscious, or how dogs prove training of the brain is possible. About a century ago, a Russian researcher called Pavlov managed to devise a simple yet effective connection between a sound and a subconscious reaction that triggered salivation. You probably all know the story by now. What you may not know is that there are overrides that the conscious mind cannot go over, and even if it does, they are very hard to replace. The subconscious has many old automated habits, mainly because this is what it's supposed to do. These habits are, more often than not, terribly unconstructive. While your conscious part is taking care of analysis and problem solving on a daily basis, your subconscious has more instinctual reactions and keeps track of older things that had impact on your life. And so it happens that sometimes we find it impossible to go on about our happiness and daily routine just because some old conclusion is being repeated over and over again as if on a loop. Such unconscious interference can seriously hinder our growth. The two factors that influence how hard it is to replace certain thoughts or a certain belief are 1. Time, and 2. The number of repetitions that particular thing has suffered. Basically, the more you repeat a certain thing, and the longer you keep at it, the harder it will be to remove that thing out of your head. Remember, this can go both ways. While the human brain is infinitely more complex than that of a dog, some of these connections can be adjusted just as simple as those of Pavlov's dog. And if this is what your success is dependent upon, why shouldn't you do it? What most people do when it comes to a certain painful memory, for example, is try not to react or to even forget it. This is where they find themselves in conflict with their subconscious, since that guy will not allow them to forget and will most likely keep on responding to certain stimuli even if we like it or not. The solution lies not in trying to replace or numb the stimuli, but in changing the neural connection that those stimuli have ingrained in our mind from a negative path to a more positive one. This takes time, but it can be done. The science behind this stipulates that changes can be made to the limbic system, which among other things is your motivational engine. Most articles out there that set out to teach how these changes can be achieved become lost in very general and vague terms. The following pages will give you a real opportunity to understand some of these processes, while also providing exercises for mind training and ample details in order to understand them perfectly. How to apply these concepts in business. Let's talk about how we can apply some of these notions when it comes to business. In practice, we need to become more successful in our deals, become better performers, and implicitly more fulfilled both from a professional point of view and a personal one. It is crucially important to start doing several of these things. Control your environment. Remember what you read about how our brains can hardly distinguish between real and imaginary experiences? Well, this applies to a great deal of things like sensationalized news bulletins, gossip, or coworker complaints. These things influence us almost as much as if we had been exposed to those negative experiences directly. It can seem hard at first, but you must believe those neuroscientists. It is worth the effort. Avoid any people, any circumstances, and any other exposure to negativity. Life is not a bed of roses all the time, and it is almost certain that, at least from time to time, we will have our own problems to face. Avoid becoming burdened with other people's weights as well. Be aware of self-defeating language because language translates directly to our state of mind. Avoid sentences like, "I cannot do that," or even worse, "I could never do that." If someone tells you you look ill, tired, weak, never accept their statements as fact. Even if you do feel a bit off, do not acknowledge it verbally. This does not mean to ignore what could otherwise be a friendly advice, but to always be aware of the effects of what you say. Use "I could be better" instead of "yes, I feel bad." There are always positive options. As long as we're talking about positivity, remember that people are usually defined by how they start and by how they end things. This not only applies to our bigger plans. There are great benefits to be had from the way we start each day, no matter how unimportant it could seem. Try to find a positive frame of mind as soon as you wake up. Remind yourself you are blessed to have that time at your disposal. When you go to bed, be thankful for your day. Basically, what all of these things have in common is that they propose a different order of things. If you are to wait for a good feeling in order to act like it, you may have to wait for a long time. Instead, act like it first, and you may actually start feeling better. This is not just a wishing well advice. There is actually a lot of science behind it. It has been proven that even when you fake a smile, the movement of the facial muscles causes the release of dopamine and serotonin in the brain, which generates a feeling of happiness and faster relief from stress. So, next time you wish to feel better, try faking it until you actually make it. You may not reach nirvana in a few seconds, but you cannot reach your destination if you don't at least take the first step. Autosuggestion. Working on your memories goes really well, one could say, hand in hand with autosuggestion. Some of the same tricks are being used, the difference being in the fact that you do not work with something that has already happened, you work instead with something that will happen or that you want to happen. It is fairly simple, and you only need to devote a few minutes every day in order to get good results. For example, bring into focus the thing that affects you the most at a certain time, and imagine it going exactly as you would like. No, scratch that. Imagine it going 10 times better. Then go even further. Imagine all the details that would accompany such a success. Picture it in your mind, how you would enjoy that, what emotions would accompany that state, and keep doing that every day for a while. Now let me explain why this will bring you closer to your goal. It is because most people, when they wish for something and that something is of great importance to them, they usually feel discouraged, maybe a little afraid. They start worrying that they won't be able to achieve, to earn that certain thing, and by doing that, they create a negative emotional bond with that dream. So after a while, just thinking about that dream brings anguish and fear into their mind, sometimes without them even realizing it. So by doing the exercise described above, what you do is replace that negative bond of emotion with a positive one. After you practice for a few weeks, even days, you will start to feel inspired when you think about achieving your goals. Your subconscious will instantly generate more ideas, better feedback, and provide you with more energy to carry out your plans. If nothing else, at least you will enjoy doing your work, and as you may have understood by now, good energy attracts even more good energy, until you reach a point where you will have gained continuous momentum for your dreams. So, focus is immensely important. Always be aware of where your focus lies. This is maybe the most important thing that you will ever have to do. Once you learn how to do this, each and everything in your life will become easier. This is what separates the more successful people from the less successful ones. There is something that every individual must realize in order to become an accomplished person and take charge of his own life. You are not your brain. There isn't a generally accepted reason why our brains try to trick us into believing such a thing. Maybe it's just because we allow it to, and we rarely question that fact. The reality is that your brain can give you a lot of bad information, and it can tell you a lot of lies about yourself. There are many people around the world whose minds bombard them with negative thoughts, telling them how weak, ugly, incompetent, fat, stupid they are. The list could go on for pages. And the tragic thing is that most of the people who experience such thoughts are not able to find ways to stop these thoughts. After a while, they accept them, take them for granted. For others, the process is not so obvious. Yet the reality is that every single person out there has some negative feedback from their brain. In order to achieve your full potential, you must start questioning yourself. Learn to recognize the thoughts that bring the most discomfort and discouragement in your life. Separate them, mold them, change them. Ask yourself if those things that bring you down are facts or beliefs. You will discover that in most cases you believe a certain thing not based on a certainty, but simply because you got used to seeing it that way. And if repetition has been able to fixate a negative thought in your mind, repetition is able to remove that thought too, or even better, change it into a positive one. Yet sometimes just imagining things just won't cut it. A certain idea has been carved too deep, and it seems impossible to carve it out. If that is the case, use more aggressive methods. Start surrounding yourself with visual cues, quotes, Post-its, and so on. You can even find software that will flash subliminal messages of your own choosing while you are working. Eventually, your mind will accept the new idea and let go of the old one. Anything can be achieved by repetition. More particular methods of finding focus or training your mind can be found through meditation. For example, if you're willing to experiment with it, we suggest you give it a shot. There's nothing to lose and quite a lot to be gained from it. Researchers found innumerable benefits to meditation, and prayer too, for that matter. They reduce stress and anxiety, thus reducing the damage that your brain incurs on a daily basis. Studies have revealed that these practices can actually change the size of particular regions in the brain, reshaping neural pathways and improving your mind in a very real way. Changes were noticed in areas of the brain associated with fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and even the ability of the body to heal itself. You will need to start practicing regularly, though, to be able to get the more obvious gains out of it. Eternal life aside, there's no reason why you shouldn't start improving this life first. Empathy. Let us talk now about what we can change about our connections with other people. There is no ignoring the fact that our brains are hardwired for connections and relationships. Science has discovered that each person has a number of specialized neurons called mirror neurons, which activate when another person is sharing something with us. This explains how, in certain cases, it is almost as if we can feel another person's pain just by looking at a movie of them being hit, or how we suddenly feel a rush of happiness when friends share the happy moments of their lives. Of course, not all people experience these things at the same intensity, but research has shown that the ones who are more adept at this neural resonance are also the best problem solvers out there. Because after all, this is not just about some popularity contest, which, by the way, it won't hurt to be won either, but mostly about having success in your business endeavors. So why does this work? Well, scientists explain that those who are better at this empathic communication not only predict some of the actions of other people better, but are also able to communicate their desires around, which in turn motivates others to help where otherwise they wouldn't, and even put more enthusiasm into it. A good communicator attracts more people around him. Good communicators have more meaningful relationships, either with their life partners, their friends, or their coworkers. They motivate their subordinates better and predict the wishes or whims of their bosses with greater accuracy. Stronger bonds always increase efficiency. Reflected logic. Sometimes the body works the mind. We know for a fact that our mental state influences our general energy. When people are sad, they feel as if they are drained of energy, not just mentally, but also physically. A depressed person will rarely find the will to do something, even if it's just a simple walk. Yet only a few people are aware that such a connection works both ways. It has been demonstrated in various tests that even a 10-minute stroll will encourage the brain to become more active, more creative, and regain some of its lost mood. So it seems that things work the other way around too. You just need to take the first steps. After that, the body will take care of the rest. Think about it. If athletes have mental trainers, why wouldn't mental exercises also make use of the rest of the body? After all, we are a whole, and every member is dependent on the failure or success of the others. Even better, combine exercises. While taking your walk, try to remember as many details as you can, and after you've come back home or to your office, try reconstructing your path as vividly as possible. And don't limit yourself to this memory exercise. Practice everything that you've been told until now. Look out for things out of the ordinary, for happy people. Test all of your senses. Try to discover what that special smell is. Play with the surrounding sounds. Enhance some while leaving out others. Feel your body. Use your mind to follow your movement, your breath. Enjoy whatever beauty you can find inside and around you. Once again, with the risk of repeating this one too many times, always be aware. We are our own personal development trainers. Our brain is a thing based on natural law, yet it can harness the power to bend those same laws and get the most benefit out of them. This power that most of us do not entirely comprehend places us at a very important yet delicate place among all that exists. We have achieved, and not in such a long time, the power to change matter and juggle with many laws of the universe. We have developed immensely powerful and complex machines. We have developed ourselves, our society, and the planet around us in ways that would have been considered unbelievable just a few decades ago. Our position has reached a delicate position indeed, because it brings with it unprecedented responsibility for all that power. We could end all creation, at least on this planet, if we had any reason to, and that says a lot about what the human mind can achieve, and even more about how great are these gifts that have been given to us. Yet despite all the power we have achieved in the external world, not many people have even begun to understand the laws of their inner universe. Where we direct our attention determines what we change in our brains. How much determination we have in controlling our attention determines the speed at which we are able to advance in our lives, to overcome past difficulties and earn new, greater achievements. So our success lies where our focus lies. If our focus is out of control and wandering according to its own whims and whatever external stimuli surround us at a certain time, then it is highly improbable for us to achieve good results in following our goals. A lot of people devote a good deal of their time and of their energy to train their bodies and keep them in shape. The human race is definitely interested in maintaining its appearances and its physical health. Yet not very many people are as equally interested in maintaining their mental condition, and even less people are willing to spend time training it. Although seeing how it is the main factor of our fulfillment and success, ignoring it seems quite ridiculous. The mind is the lens above all other lenses. If that first lens is obscured, everything else will be influenced by that. Even the brightest of things will lose some of that brightness, and dark ones will appear even darker. Improving your state of mind is the root of all that can go right in your life. No two people have the same qualities or the same defects. No two minds work exactly the same. What some lack in certain parts make up others. The practices that have been described above can both strengthen the weak points and improve those already developed. They go beyond just achieving success in our business endeavors or in our career. Improving our mood, controlling our focus, strengthening our state of mind not only affects our financial gains, but the entirety of our life in all of its aspects. Who can refuse the pleasure and benefits of more meaningful relationships with other people? Who can say no to a more enjoyable family life? Who can refuse a healthier life, a more creative approach to their dreams? The more I think about it, the more it seems to me that the mind is the perfect creation of all of the elements. It has the quality of metal that can be forged to formidable strength. This comparison translates in our ability to gain more stability and confidence in ourselves. At the same time, it is formless, flowing, and adaptive, like water. It is a natural, living thing with all the beauty that this implies. In turn, this allows it to grow and change according to what we need, supple and flexible. Like fire, it can spread warmth and bring light to dark places. It can purify itself or any other thing. It instills passion, security, motivation. It has the weightlessness of air and the potential to reach any height in wielding concepts only limited by our limitless imagination. An open mind is bright and compassionate and cracks open the doors of wisdom. And last, but not least, it has the ability to reach beyond our everyday experiences, to feel what it would otherwise seem untouchable. It isn't just about spontaneous, playful creativity, but a construct being able to connect to what it transcends itself. Isn't that the stuff that miracles are made of? Isn't this a thing of wonder, a material construct endowed with the speed of light, the power of the atomic bomb? Even the smallest of minds can influence numberless lives and change the course of civilization. And if a machine of this complexity is not used and not put to good use, isn't that the greatest loss that we can be subjected to?